Welcome to the Nature Photo Guys podcast,
where we talk about nature photography, from gear to our philosophies and everything in between.
So grab a cup of coffee, sit back and relax.
You're listening to Joe Desjardins
and Chris Gibbs, the Nature Photo Guys.
All right, Chris, how's it going?
Good. How you doing, Joe?
Not too bad. Kind of excited about this episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's one of my favorite ways to shoot. One of my favorite kind of settings to use.
Sure.
So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But you had a few things to bring up.
Yeah, for sure. You and I started talking about this podcast stuff about 4 months ago, and since then we've had like hundreds of listeners to our podcast. Our YouTube channel is growing, and we're getting comments. So it's great. So we're adding some interactivity with people. So it's been good.
Oh, awesome. Good.
Yeah. So we've had some questions. Well, first of all, Mr. Nick has sent us a shout out again. And
has he?
Yeah, as we know, he was a pilot, right? Commercial pilot.
Yeah.
So he's got this great analogy regarding our switching from auto to aperture priority mode in episode 4. And his comment was like, it's just like flying. Don't let the software fly the airplane. Get rid of most of the magic was his analogy.
Awesome. That's so cool.
So that was pretty good. And Raphael gave us a bit of a shout out here. We started talking last episode about the Topaz software and how it could change what we do, right? With AI
we kind of got off
stuff.
topic a little bit and got into the whole high ISO and everything. And
we did.
So okay, cool.
Yeah,
so
but he was intrigued about that, and he just wanted to let us know that he's used a D500, a Nikon D500, and he's managed to bring images back to life with from ISO 6000.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and what he does is he says that he uses Lightroom, and he sharpens everything there, and then he finishes his images with the denoise software. So I guess that's another software that Topaz has, and he believes there's a bit of sharpening in there, and he says every time he finishes his image, it just blows him away once he drops that on there. So,
nice.
Yeah,
nice.
So it's another thing for people to experiment. I mean, I haven't tried the denoise yet myself.
Okay. I
did download a bit of an update on the AI Sharpen and played around a little bit.
What did you think?
Yeah, it looks pretty good. I got to play around a little more. There's a 30-day trial or something like that. So I'm just playing with that. Sure. But I found that on a close-up image, I think it would do great wonders. On a wide-angle image where I had, for example, a heron and a pelican, it sharpened those nicely, but it also took like a patch of the water and sharpened that as well. So,
really? Okay.
But they do have the ability to do some masking, so I think that would a little fine tuning, and I think it would just
probably the way you're gonna have to go.
So still some playing around there, but it's something there. And if people want to, if have any comments and if they've tried it out, let us know how it goes or whatever, and what they think of it too. But something to experiment with one day for sure.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad Raphael made the mention then. Something else to try out.
I think so. Yeah, for sure.
You got to love those 30-day free trials too. So.
Oh yeah. You sure do.
I mean, it gives you a good idea of what it can do. And I know sometimes it limits certain features, but it sure gives you just like I said, just a general idea of the power of the software. And then, and a lot of times too, you can find discount codes and stuff too.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. And a lot of times, like Black Fridays, there's sales, that kind of stuff, right? So it's really just it's wait at sometimes, look for codes. You might be able to get a deal. Even ask them. They may not publish it, but they may have a code sitting there. I've had that happen too, right? So
yeah, exactly. Cool.
So
right on.
So we're going to talk about the last setting that we use on the camera, manual mode.
Manual mode, but there's a kicker to it. It's manual mode with auto ISO.
Okay.
And I've been shooting that way for years. Now, I know I mentioned I've been using aperture priority, and I still do. But for the majority of the time now, I'm using manual with auto ISO. Okay. And the reason for it is this. With certain lenses, I know what my minimum shutter speed needs to be to handhold to get a sharp image. Okay.
Fair enough.
So let's say it's 1/500th of a second. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So I set in manual mode my shutter speed to 1/500th of a second. I set my aperture wide open in most cases when I'm shooting wildlife, let's say f4. Okay. And then auto ISO, it's going to pick the best ISO for the exposure, right?
Yep.
Okay. So this way here, instead of instead of picking my ISO and my aperture and letting the camera dictate um, the shutter speed, and me having to pay attention to the shutter speed and having to adjust my ISO accordingly to get a fast enough shutter speed,
Right.
I know I'm set to the minimum shutter speed I need.
Right.
Okay. To handhold and to freeze the action in most cases. Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I let the camera dictate the ISO. Now, no matter what setting you use, there's always going to be one part of the exposure triangle you have to pay attention to, no matter what.
Yes.
Right? Okay. And in this case here, you have to pay attention to how high the ISO goes. Right.
Fair enough. Yeah. As the light's getting darker, right?
That's right. That ISO, next thing you know, it could shoot out to 10,000, right? You know what I mean? Yeah. Without you knowing. Okay. So there's still something you have to pay attention to. Okay. Right. And in this case here, if you watch the ISO go up, it's creeping up too high, then you can just adjust your shutter speed, right? Sure. Yep. Just slow it down a little bit to allow more light, right? And that's it. Okay.
Okay.
So, I've found that I've actually gotten images that I never would have gotten if I didn't shoot this way. Okay. And here's one example. It was like 6:30 in the morning. I was out, there's just enough light to see. I was on a trail. There was a cross fox coming down with a long tail mouse in its mouth.
Okay.
Running towards me. And I already had my camera set, 1/500th of a second at f4. Yeah. Didn't even pay attention to the ISO. But as it was coming to me, I was just firing shots off, right? Okay. Yeah. Not paying attention to the ISO. Okay.
You're right.
But in order for me to get that shot, to get a sharp image, I actually got the shot of the fox with all 4 feet off the ground. You know what I mean? Kidding. As it was running, it's in sharp focus, but my ISO was 10,000.
Okay.
Okay. Now this was shot on a full frame. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
But it was.
So you got some leeway there.
Yeah. So a shot at 10,000 ISO. Now I can tell you right now, there's no way I would have known in aperture priority to jump up to 10,000 ISO to get 1/500th of a second. There's no way. My brain doesn't think that way.
No.
Okay.
You would have been playing around with the dials and the fox is gone, right?
That's gone. I wouldn't have even got a shot. You know what I mean? That's so, right. Or my shutter speed would have been so slow that every image was out of focus, right?
Yes. Okay, yes.
Blur, right?
Yeah.
So with the software and, a bit of manipulation and post-processing, that image actually turned out quite well.
Nice.
You know what I mean? Yeah. It's a printable image. Wow. It's great for, social media online, whatever, Facebook, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it actually turned out not too bad at 10,000 ISO. Like wow. I was really impressed on a full frame. Okay.
And that's the kicker there, printing, right? So you can still be able to print that. It's not just the social media thing, like you said, right? You can still print it and get the quality.
That's right. Absolutely. So the biggest point I want to make here is that I got the shot.
Mm-hmm.
A little on the grainy side, but sharp.
But you'll take it.
But I'll take it every day of the week. Okay. Yeah. Now with what Raphael said and the noise and topaz and everything else, man, who knows how much nicer I'm going to be able to clean up the image.
Sure. Yeah. Right? You'll be downloading that 30-day trial, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, it's just one of those things. Now, I know the capability of that camera. Yes. And I know I could push that ISO 6,000, 8,000, whatever it is, right? Okay. Yeah. Some of my other cameras, I'm kind of stuck at maybe 3,200,
Yes.
Maybe pushing it to 64. Right. Yeah. But then again, like we said in previous episodes, you have to be aware and you have to be happy with whatever ISO setting you use. So you got to test your camera. You may be happy with nothing over 1,600,
Yeah, right. Yeah, for sure. Depends on the camera. And in this case, you didn't even know it was going to shoot ISO 10,000. And
no, I was excited. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't even pay attention to the ISO. I was just shooting. This thing ran right to me, right past me. Just like, okay, I'm bringing dinner home for the kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like I wasn't even there,
That's funny.
And so it was one of those crazy things where if I would have been paying attention, I might have dropped the ISO a little bit and maybe cut my shutter speed in half to 1/250th. Right. That still might have been enough to get a sharp image, right? But I know myself, hand holding, that kind of stuff, 1/500th, in that case, they're using that lens, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So, which is a big, heavy telephoto, right? So,
yes, exactly. But the difference is, I mean, we talked about in previous episodes, like you said, as the light's dwindling, we're constantly jumping up that ISO, that dial. In this case, you don't have to. It's doing it for you in a way, right?
That's right. And the only thing you got to do is pay attention to how high it goes and just adjust your shutter speed.
Yeah.
And again, guys, we're talking about nature photography, and we're talking about the wildlife aspect of nature photography. We could talk about manual mode for hours in all kinds of situations, like in portrait studio situation, like, balancing lights, flash, all this kind of stuff. But, we just want to explain how we use manual mode for nature photography.
Yes. And I think based on what you're saying, there's a better chance you're going to catch that wildlife, right? With the ISO moving on its own, you're going to catch that. You're not going to have to play with the dials. 9 times out of 10, you're going to make sure you're going to catch that wildlife crossing your path.
Well, and that's it. And, especially when the light's consistent, it may not be near the end of the day. It may be a couple hours after sunrise and the light's still beautiful. You know what I mean?
Yeah, fair enough.
You're going to have a consistent ISO anyways. Mm-hmm. So, you're taking a good look and it's only at 800. Well, you're set, just keep shooting, right?
Yeah,
and if the sun goes behind a cloud, it may jump up to 1600, but you're still okay. Yep. So you're not really paying attention too much. You have that solid shutter speed that you want, whether it's 2/50th of a second or 1/1000th of a second, whatever it is that you're shooting. And again, that's all dependent on whether wildlife's running, you know what I mean? Whether it's like an elk calf jumping around playing with his mom,
sure.
Or it's just a big moose out in the meadow grazing, in that case there, you could drop it down to probably 1/60th of a second and still get a sharp image, right?
Yeah, but I think like what you said there, I mean, if it's running, if it's still, if it's whatever, you can just adjust the shutter speed a little bit, and the ISO is still going to be able to rectify itself, right?
That's right. So, I mean, there's not much more to say about that. I don't know how short this episode's going to be, right. but I mean, it's the biggest reason why I shoot it that way.
Yes.
Is because of the adjustment, the auto adjustment of the ISO. So
yeah, exactly. And even in landscapes, there's opportune times to use it or not use it. Depends on what you're doing. I even find like shooting in manual if I'm taking a photo of the moon or something, right? So, the camera, if you're shooting directly at the moon, it's so bright, the camera sometimes doesn't know, but being able to make those adjustments in manual mode corrects that, right? So
that's right. But you're not in auto ISO then, right? You're looking, and in this case here, you're just adjusting whatever it is, aperture or shutter.
Yes, because I've had to turn it off in that case for sure.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like I said, you can use manual in all kinds of ways, but in this case here, I think for wildlife photography, and this isn't anything new, guys. I mean, this has been around for a long, long time. It's just I've probably been using it maybe for, I'm guessing maybe 3 or 4 years now, and throwing aperture priority in there when, trying out different camera systems or, using a camera system that I know I don't want to go any higher than say 1600. Well, then I'll use aperture priority and just cap it. Now, here's another point I wanted to bring up too. Some of the cameras you can set like a min and a max for ISO.
Yes, that's true. Yep.
That's right. So if you're in manual mode, setting your shutter speed and your aperture, and let's say you capped your ISO to 3200. Well, if you reach your 3200 and you need 6400, all of a sudden your images are going to be underexposed.
True.
Right. So you got to watch that too. Okay. Yeah. So now I don't know if the camera would start, like some of the settings would start flashing. Like I know in some cameras it'll start blinking saying like, okay, there's something wrong. Right. You either have to, slow down the shutter speed because you need the more light because you're maxed at 3200,
yes,
or something like that. But just be aware that you can also cap it. So, that I never want to go over 3200. I'm just not happy with the images at 6400 and above. They're just way too grainy.
Yeah.
So there's that option also.
Well, and I like that scenario, but I don't like that scenario as well in a way, because, you know, that's one thing I don't like being is capped, because there's always that one scenario that you don't want it that way. You need to make a change. And now you're fumbling through the, you know, some of the new cameras, it's all through internal touch screen, right? So it depends on the camera you're using. So
yeah, you got to go 3 levels deep to change.
And then the animal's gone, right? So it's the capping scenario, being able to make those quick adjustments on the fly, and not capping yourself is I prefer that, but I mean, everybody's different for sure. So.
Well, I mean, so there it is. I mean, we got aperture priority, shutter priority, and manual mode.
Yep.
You know,
3 main modes, really, right?
The 3 main shooting options, I guess, or set camera settings. And you know, not one is better than the other. It's just what you're used to. Okay.
Yes.
And I would suggest you pick one and get really good at it before you jump to this one and that one and everything. You know what I mean? Like,
agreed.
Yeah, so like I shot an aperture priority since the beginning, you know, of digital.
Yeah.
And I got very good at it using exposure compensation, this, that. Like I just knew it like the back of my hand, right?
Right.
I knew when I'd have to use exposure comp and, you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But exposure compensation, something we'll talk about maybe in the next episode, in case anybody's wondering what I'm talking about. Coming soon to a podcast near you. And so just, and then whether it's, you know, or maybe you're happy with shutter priority and the fact that you're controlling action, you know. But, you know, if you've been shooting aperture priority for a long time, maybe manual mode is with auto ISO something you may want to try. Give it a shot.
Yeah, for sure. But you know, the benefits of what we were talking about with manual, with auto ISO, if you know you want it at f2.8 or f4 and you know what your shutter speed is, it's kind of a great benefit to using this function for sure, right? With auto ISO.
But, and the thing here's another little tip you got to remember, because you know, the majority of the wildlife I shoot is wide open. So you got to remember, when your aperture is set at f4, you can't open it up anymore to allow more light, right?
No.
So your shutter speed is the only thing you can adjust.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now if you're at f8, you know, and at 1/500th of a second, and you needed a little more light, okay. Right. Now you can dial down to maybe 5/6, f4, 2/8, whatever your camera's capable of.
That's right. Yeah.
But the reason I was talking about adjusting the shutter all the time is because I'm usually maxed out on the aperture. I'm usually shooting at the widest option.
Yes. In this case, majority. Yeah. You and I both do the same thing in that scenario.
That's right. You know, shooting wide open. Yeah. So in that case the shutter speed's the only thing you can adjust in auto ISO.
Right. Yeah.
So just keep that in mind, everybody. I just wanted to clarify that, because some people might say, well, why not open up the aperture more to allow more light? Well, usually you can't.
You can't. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
Just a little reminder of that. So
yeah, exactly. Yep.
So anything else you want to add to that? I mean, I'm not sure, you know, how long this episode's going to be. Where are we at, Chris?
It's like 17 minutes maybe.
Oh, okay. That's not too bad. I mean, maybe a short one for everybody this week, but
yeah, for sure. Like you said, I mean, I think everybody's going to pick and choose what they like to use, what they're used to. I mean, try them all out. I mean, we've talked about that multiple times. I think people probably are going to be more comfortable on the aperture priority scenario when you, like you said, they may find the benefits to shutter priority mode that we don't as well. And depending on what they're doing, but you know, when you're comfortable, try the manual scenario that we're talking about here, because I think that you will find some huge benefits that, you know, with this scenario for sure.
It boils down to getting images that you probably never would have gotten. Okay.
Yeah. That's the key. Make sure if you can get the capture, don't be fiddling around with your buttons. And
like I've gotten images I know I never would have gotten without auto ISO.
Yes.
And like I said, a little on the grainy side, but hey, if you're printed on canvas, you know, feathers and fur, you know,
exactly.
you can usually sharpen it up enough, and you know, and with all the new software out there, I mean, I would say don't even worry about it. You know, just make sure you're not any higher, or pay attention to the point where you're not any higher than what you're comfortable with ISO.
Exactly. And like we said last episode, test your camera. Make sure that you know where that limit is, right?
That's right. Shoot at all the ISOs, you know, download them on the computer, look at them 100%, right? 100% view, and just see what you're happy with, right? You know, and if you want to go to the extreme, just go and get them printed.
Yeah. And then prove it. Like, you know, if you just physically get it printed, look at them yourselves, because I should also note here that depending on the size and the quality of your monitor, like for example, I work on a 42-inch monitor, right? So when I'm looking
size
at
of my
that,
TV,
yeah, I know.
In my bedroom, holy jeez.
I do video editing, so I got panels all over the place too, right? But when I'm editing a photo, I actually can't put it that big. I got to put it smaller, because the bigger you get, as you know.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It looks like there's way more noise than there actually is, right? So, and
that's why I say 100%. Yes. The minute you get into 200 or 300% for whatever reason you're looking, it starts to fall apart.
It does,
and you just can't do that, right?
And you're not going to notice that when you print it, right? When you print it, you're not going to see the details that you're seeing on your screen that big.
That's right. Yeah. Like you're saying, like 200, 300%, 400%.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
When you're viewing on screen. Yeah. So, I mean, that's another good tip. Just print out a bunch of 8x10s. They're cheap, you know, and just go from, I don't know if you'd have to go from like 100, 200, 400, but, maybe go 400 to 800, 16, 32, 64. Yeah. And just see if you're happy with that range first. Yeah,
if you're printing at 100, then you should switch cameras, because
but you know what I mean? Those lower ones, they're going to be fine.
It's going to work. Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe shoot one at 10,000 just for kicks. Yeah,
right?
What I mean? Just to see, right?
But it depends on the camera you're using, right? So
that's right.
The full frame capabilities, ISO 10,000. So.
Exactly. And it's not just full frame anymore. Micro Four Thirds, all these cameras are just incredibly sharp. And like I said before in previous episodes, the with the proper software, I mean, with the Micro Four Thirds, like bringing it back with the denoise and the AI sharpen and all this kind of stuff. Like it's like you're shooting full frame, right?
Yeah.
So
like Raphael said, it's a game changer, right? So.
Yeah, you betcha. Yeah. I haven't really gotten up to speed on all this software. I'm a Lightroom Photoshop guy.
Yeah.
And I've always been, so.
Yeah, me too. I have Lightroom, Photoshop, but over the last couple of years, I've also been using On1 is changing the game a little bit from what they used to be with their own software. So they're improving a lot. Lots of they're pulling in what I find is different items from a whole bunch of pieces of software and creating their own great piece of software. So you can explore, but there's lots of things out there that could be game changers. It's, we brought up Topaz. It's not just Topaz. There's other scenarios too.
No.
But this is what you and I have seen, right? So
I mean, I get stuff in my inbox every week for different types of software and everything and what to try. And it's just a matter of finding time to sit down, grab a bunch of images, compare them with the trials, and try and do this all within 30 days.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Sometimes you download the trial and go, wait a second, there's 2 days left on the 30-day trial.
I know.
Where did the time go?
It's happened so many times with all kinds of stuff for me, but I know. So I mean, cool. I think that's it. I don't know, Chris, is there anything else you want to add, or?
No, I agree. I think that sums up the the 3 modes that we wanted to talk about, and there's pros and cons with all those, and again, try them out and see what one works for you.
And drop us a line. I mean, let us know if it's something new you've tried and you've had some success, or you haven't had any success, or if you have any questions about it, drop us a comment, send us an email. We'd be happy to answer that, and we could even bring it up in the next episode. So
for sure. Sounds good to me. That's great.
Cool. I'd like to end things with my workshop. We still have a couple of spots left. It's a shoot till you drop with myself and Monica Deviat. And it's in Waterton Lakes National Park, September 17th to the 20th. You can find my workshop information at joedesjardins.ca under workshops, or you can find it in the link on my Instagram, joedesjardins.ca. Okay. But colors are starting to change already down there. Elk have lost their velvet, so I'm guessing the timing may be just right for the elk rut, fall colors, some nice, clouds depending, some nice, nighttime stuff too. So,
and it's Waterton. There's always beautiful shots to capture in Waterton.
Oh, I know. And we're going to throw in the portrait session too. I mean, if weather cooperates, it's going to be all environmental portraiture and stuff. So, which is going to be a lot of fun too. So if you guys have any questions, send me an email direct, joe@joedesjardins.ca, and I'd be happy to answer those questions.
Well, perfect, Joe. That's coming up quick, eh?
Yeah, you bet. And I'm super excited. We got a good group going.
Nice.
I got a couple of repeat customers that just love it down there. So yeah, I'm pretty stoked.
Awesome. Good. Well, good luck with it. That's going to be great.
Thanks, Chris. Next episode, I think we should probably cover exposure compensation. Mainly because it ties in with those camera settings, right?
You know? Yep. Might just finish everything off there.
Yeah, and I mean it's an important skill to learn, especially with the cameras that aren't mirrorless.
Right.
Okay. Because with the mirrorless cameras, what you see is what you get. Right. That's the beauty of the mirrorless, right?
Cameras. Yeah, exactly.
So as far as exposure goes, so I think we'll talk about exposure comp next episode.
Sounds good.
Okay, Chris. Till next time, we'll let everybody go, and we'll see you then.
Sounds good, Joe. Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Bye for now.
You've been listening to the Nature Photo Guys podcast. If you have any questions, contact us at info@thenaturephotoguys.ca or message us on Facebook and Instagram at the Nature Photo Guys Podcast. Make sure you listen to all our new episodes on www.thenaturephotoguys.ca or visit your major podcast providers, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We'll catch you next time on the Nature Photo Guys Podcast.